Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Here's our buddy Mitch Fick. We'll get to Mitch in just a moment. But I want to lay out the rest of the show for you before we get started here with Mitch. Michael Merrick going to join me in just a little bit after Mitch. Michael, my production partner, we're going to be talking Iowa women's field hockey, Iowa women's soccer, Iowa women's wrestling, Iowa women's basketball. Oh, by the way, Bluter's bunch. Caitlin Clark, congratulations. University of Iowa's all-time leading scorer, and what a class act Megan Gustafson is, giving her well wishes to Caitlin. But also then men's basketball, obviously football with Mitch Fick, and then we'll close out the show as we usually do with our sports betting expert in Vegas, Northeast Iowa native Scott Pritchard. Scotty P will join us as always. So that being said, Mitch Fick, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Always great to be here.
Well, Mitch, let's get to it. It's senior day upcoming. The Hawks in first place in the Western Division. People want to try to complain and sling arrows, but at 5-2, 2 games left, one at home against Illinois, senior day this Saturday on FS1. So, Mitch, all they've done is gone 8-2, again, 5-2 in the Big Ten Conference. Win one of these 2 games, and I don't want to say you want to back into this, but even if they lose 2 games, a lot of weird has to happen for them not to go to the Big Ten Championship. But let's put that to rest and win a game, especially senior day. You were at press availability today as we record this on Tuesday, November 14th, Tuesday afternoon. Mitch, Coach Ferentz's comments, but you talked to the players this morning before Coach this afternoon, before they were available to the media. Tory Taylor had a big announcement. You talked to some other outgoing seniors. Yeah, kind of gave it away right there. But not unexpected, but sad news, because we'd all love to have him around as long as possible. But let's have you start there with the players, specifically Tory Taylor, and then we'll morph into the rest of the coverage.
Yeah, I mean, 26 years old. He probably wasn't going to be sticking around, and he's got a heck of a future in the pros. So Tory Taylor making it official. What we were kind of expecting, that he's going to declare for the NFL draft, which, boy, one of the best stories in a plethora of great stories in this class, I believe, that's comprised of 20 seniors, but a kid who came here half a world away, left everything he knew, and all he's done is become, I think there's a pretty darn good argument, right, with Reggie Roby that he's the greatest punter that Iowa's ever seen. And that was the really great part about player availability today on this Tuesday, is just talking to these guys, not so much about the schematics and what's been happening, what is happening. Let's look back and play This Is Your Life with all these kids.
Yeah.
And just super cool to hear them reflect on things and just really being appreciative and certainly speaking so highly of Coach Ferentz and what he's meant to them. A guy who, again, reminds us almost weekly. He's been doing this for 25 years as a head coach and continues to just want to set a standard and wants to build these relationships, and he always says it's about the people. And yeah, he's got 20 people that are leaving the program or have the opportunity to leave the program now, graduating, that they've certainly left their legacy. The really great news out of all this, though, I asked Kirk, is Noah Shannon going to be a part of senior day? He will.
Awesome.
And I cannot imagine the roar from that crowd of just thank you, not an apology so much as just, hey, thanks for just being here and just everything you've done. And boy, what a bittersweet way to wrap things up. But boy, it's going to be great to see Hawkeye Nation say hello and goodbye to Noah Shannon.
Well, and I think you really went to a couple of good places here. And Mitch, when you talk about, and by the way, we got right to the content. Of course, Mitch Fick is the news anchor at Fox 28 and CBS2. And, Mitch, when you talk about the off the field to on the field, it's amazing what these guys go through. And they know when they sign up for it. But I think it's very telling what you said Jay Higgins would say to his younger self. Yeah,
that was one of the highlights of today. And, I think if I'm doing my math right, you get 168 hours in a week. You get to see this team that, so many people make an emotional investment in. A lot of people make it a financial investment in tailgating stuff for 7 Saturdays at Kinnick Stadium. And it's super easy as just humans and being a reactionary species of boiling your entire opinion on other human beings down to this little window of your week and of your life, and getting the little time that we do to talk with these guys and just those reminders of that they're 18 to 22-year-old kids, unless you're Tory, and then you're 26. I think Nico's like 25 or something like that. But they're just trying to make it through the day like anybody else. Just so happens they throw on a black and gold helmet and jersey on Saturdays or on Black Friday, and they're doing their best to represent their families and themselves and this university to the best of their ability, just like any graduate is, or like anybody else through a walk of life wearing a logo on a shirt or whatever it may be. And so I hope people remember that, and they tend to do a fairly good job of that during senior day. One of my favorite memories of senior day was just last year, and hearing that roar for Spencer Petras as he came out. Listen, kids' numbers were not what you see from some other quarterbacks at other schools, but all that kid did was come out every single day, compete his tail off. He's one of my all-time favorite Hawkeyes because of the way he carried himself, and he led this team to one of the biggest wins they've had in the Kirk Ferentz era over Penn State in 2021. And so to hear that crowd roar for him and just seeing the joy on his face, and now he gets to continue his journey elsewhere as he goes in the transfer portal. I mean, senior day is a chance to really understand and appreciate everything these kids and their families sacrifice so that people can have a little entertainment.
We get better in November, a November to remember. 16 of their last 17 games in November have been wins in the last handful of years going back. So if people want to pull back the layers of the onion and get all crazy with numbers, like you said, let's start honing in on some real numbers. You know what, Mitch? When you take a look at all that has been piled up in the last couple of years, but this year specifically, small wonder Kirk Ferentz showed that emotion.
It's, like I said, it's when you just get away from the optics of it and just understand and see the growth by individual players. You know, for Deacon Hill to take his lumps, and then have a game like that, even after throwing a pick at the end of the first half, you have to go into that locker room encouraged, and then he comes out and just he's been so close on a lot of throws for 6-7 weeks now, and for him to have a game like that where, you know, last two games he's completing, I think, 30 of 46 of his passes, you know, well over 65% in there. You hope he's turning a corner. And again, like, this kid who hadn't played live football in I think 2 or 3 years coming into this, and people just had this expectation of like, well, he played at Wisconsin or was on the roster at Wisconsin, he'll go. You know, Kirk said it, and then I had a bit of a jinx moment with Deacon too when I brought up, you can't microwave stuff, and that was what Kirk pointed out. So I think this is a team that's, to stick with the cooking analogies, has always been, I think, just because they bring in a lot of walk-ons and a lot of lower star recruits, that it's always going to be a slow roast. This is a crock pot program. You know what I mean?
Well, I do indeed. Let it stew.
Slow roast, and
let
that stew be ready by the end of the night come November, December.
Very good analogy. Here's Mitch Fick, folks. Mitch, great to see you as always. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So for Mitch Fick, again, CBS2 and Fox 28 news anchor, but also sports guy, Eye on the Hawks podcast. Check that out. You'll see all of Mitch's information at the bottom of the screen throughout this segment with all his social media. Go to that and you can get to the Eye on the Hawks podcast. So for Mitch Fick, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Mershman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Here's our buddy Michael Merrick, my production partner on this side of the camera again. So much goodness to get to with the Iowa Hawkeye women. As you know, Michael calls games for KRUI, the student-run radio station. He's a sports director there and a sports anchor, but also the Daily Iowan Television Network, sports anchor, sports director, but also for Big Ten Plus he calls games. And so Michael's got this unique perspective we've talked about in weeks past. So Michael's going to talk Hawkeye women's athletics. Will brushstroke the men since we basketball, but since we talked football with Mitch Fick the segment before, we thought it's a great time to have Michael on this week to get us up to speed on all the women's athletics. So Michael, great seeing you as always.
Great to be here, Dave.
Thank you so much as always. So Michael, as I mentioned in the intro, you have a perspective that few others do. You've called games for the Iowa women's field hockey team, for the University of Iowa women's soccer team, for the wrestling team this last weekend. And now, you know, of course, Bluter's Bunch, Caitlin Clark last couple years. But and you were in Charlotte. We're going to talk about that with that big victory over Virginia Tech last week. So when we talk women's field hockey, Michael, heartbreaking loss, 2-1 in overtime to Louisville in the Sweet 16. Great season. You called the games. Coach Salucci and her ladies. Talk about your experience with them this year and what a heartbreaking loss that was.
Yeah, so the field hockey team, they lost a lot of veterans from the year before, but they brought in a lot of great talent from the Netherlands. Dion Van Alsem won Big Ten Freshman of the Year, and if you got to see anything from this field hockey team this year, you would not be shocked. She had multiple games of 4+ goals, especially early on in the season. It did seem to be, though, that freshman fade kind of hit the Hawkeyes this year, and that's kind of what led to a few of the losses later on in the season, then unfortunately in the NCAA tournament also.
What a run, though. Big future for them upcoming.
Always.
Women's soccer, another overtime, 2 overtimes.
Yeah.
And, they beat a team that Bucknell, you kind of look at it and go, oh, this is going to be a tough match. Iowa Hawkeye women are used to upset wins. Mm-hmm. They are rolling now into the second round. A 2-0 victory in double OT. Why not 2-0 in double overtime, right?
Yeah, exactly. This Hawkeye women's soccer team just continues to show their resilience against other teams. Nobody picked them to win the Big Ten tournament championship, but there they go, upset all 3 teams, very similar to how they did it back in 2020. Yeah. They even won an NCAA tournament game in 2020 also, so it's just great to see those players that were there back then still contributing now. Josie Durr had one of the goals in overtime. She's been there for almost a lifetime. It's just incredible to see the Hawkeye women's soccer team. Well, let's see how far they can go. Who knows when midnight's going to strike.
Let's hope never in this case, or not this season, but we got to talk women's wrestling. Yeah. We knew this was going to be cool. Clarissa Chun has done nothing but great things in her almost 2 years now at the helm, but Michael, they set a record 8,207 people. You were one of them covering that match. You were one of that 8,207. Talk about the experience. Can I just say one thing to lead you in? That opening match where there was a pin in the first minute. 18,000 or 16,000, or 8,000 or 16,000 if you double the crowd. Mm-hmm. It sounded as thunderous when I saw it on TV. You were there in person. What a way to start the match.
Yeah, there couldn't have been a better way to start off those duels than how Iowa did it on Sunday. It's really summed up how their entire season has gone so far. Only 6 team points have been given up the entire season. 5 were given up there on Sunday, and the Hawkeyes get pretty upset when they give up a point at all. Kylie Welker at 170, she gave up one of those points, and if you would have looked at her face after the match, you would have thought she lost. Yeah. But no, she dominated as she has all season long so far. Felicity Taylor, an Iowa native, talked about how, she had always thought of how this moment would feel. It was just amazing to see. Dan Gable was there. It was incredible. The fan support was insane. There was a good amount of time in between duels. They were signing autographs for little girls.
Awesome.
Kylie Welker was signing some T-shirts, some posters. It was just awesome to see. Yep. And they talked about how not only do they mean a lot to those girls, but those girls don't understand. Those little girls watching don't understand how much they mean to the wrestlers on the mat. Yep. They always think about them. They're always, trying to set the best example to let them know that this is possible, that this is the future of what women's athletics can look like. Women's wrestling in the state of Iowa is just going to continue to grow, and hopefully across the entire country.
Let's go back to last Thursday night again. We record this on this Tuesday afternoon on November 14th. Last Thursday on the 9th, you were in Charlotte for a game against number 8th ranked Virginia Tech. The Iowa women, as we mentioned earlier in the earlier segment with Mitch Fick, the Iowa women now number 2 in the rankings, went up from number 3. Mm-hmm. South Carolina, I don't want to take anything away from Dawn Staley and her crew. They rolled over Notre Dame and Maryland from number 5 or 6, depending which poll. Now they are number 1. Mm-hmm. So Iowa in the number 2 spot. I think we'll take that for right now. It's early in the season. You were in Charlotte last week. They set a state of North Carolina record, 16,000 plus in an NBA arena. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
It was just so incredible. Both coaches talked about it in the post game. Like, if you just turned that TV on and you didn't know what was going on, you would have thought that this game didn't take place in November, that it took place in mid-March. Yes. That had postseason atmosphere around it from the crowd. They had a great Virginia Tech turnout, obviously being closer to North Carolina than Iowa, but the Hawkeyes always come through loud and proud, and that was clear. There was just so many great fans there for what was an excellent game. We saw 2 of the best point guards in the entire country just duel in that entire one. They combined for 75 points, Caitlin Clark and then Georgia Amore from Virginia Tech, who only had the most kind things to say say about Caitlin Clark after the game. They both shared such pleasantries, but Georgia Moore even said that Caitlin Clark has probably been blessed by every god that there has ever been with her level of talent and just her skill, length, ability to pass, everything. She said, we were trying to double team her. Well, then she was getting it to her teammates who can always get a bucket. We were trying to help off, and then she's scoring. It's just impossible to guard. We saw she had 44 points against Virginia Tech there, and obviously had that great game against Northern Iowa also. I mean, Iowa, number 2, some fans might be a little upset that you're not number 1 right now. You're 3 games into the season. You're very early into the season. Number 1 right now doesn't really mean a lot. What matters is how great you're going to be near the end of the year. And if the Hawkeyes can keep playing like they are right now, getting a proven win over a top 10 team, that's only going to help them even more come Big Ten play, where we know it is a tough conference.
So, Michael, that was a great walk down memory lane. Look at this guy's life, the experiences he's having, calling great field hockey matches, calling great soccer matches, calling great Iowa Hawkeye women's wrestling matches. How great is that to say that, right?
Yeah, it's just the best. I mean, really is. The University of Iowa, whether it's putting over 50,000 people in Kinnick for a women's basketball game, over 8,000 in Carver for a women's wrestling duel. I mean, the University of Iowa never fails to put a spotlight on women's athletics, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and to be able to cover it.
And Michael got to see it early in the season, the Caitlin Clark Road Show, 16,000 plus in North Carolina to face Virginia Tech. Unreal. My friend, as always, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Great seeing you. Michael Merrick, my production partner, but on this side of the camera this week, again, Michael is sports director and sports anchor at KRUI Student Run Radio, but also the Daily Iowan Student Run Television, as well as the Big Ten Plus Network, play-by-play voice as well. Whew, what an intro. You're living a life. So we'll be back with more Hawkeye. Thanks again to Michael Merrick. We'll be back with more Hawkeye. I'm Dave O'Hara. Scott Pritchard will be joining us to close out the show. Again, as you know, Northeast Iowa native and sports betting expert in Las Vegas. Scott Pritchard will join us to close out the show. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Mershman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family-owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There's our buddy Scott Pritchard, Scotty P, on the screen joining us, and I can't give it away yet. I got a huge grin, as does he. We got big news for Scotty P this week. But again, you see all of Scott's information on the bottom of the screen throughout this segment. Most important thing to remember, pritchardspicks.com. Scotty P will let you hop on into the website and then sign up for his free picks. Also, there are paid picks available as well. Again, the free picks, 60% plus. The paid picks, 2/3 or 66% plus. You take a look at the industry and you want to be at 52.4 just to break even because of the juice, the vig, the tax. Scotty P is way up in those up into the ether with those numbers. Incredible winning percentage, which means, Scotty P, congratulations. Those great numbers have pushed you into number 1. Kenny White, your buddy, fell back a little bit. So our Northeast Iowa native doing big things 30 plus years out in Vegas. In the circa the world's biggest and world's best sports book. Scotty P in that circa best of 16 invitational, 16 of the world's best sports bettors. Scotty P is now number 1. Congratulations. We'll smile for a second, but as you always so eloquently put it, Scotty P, that means there are more people chasing you now that you're at the top instead of in second place, right?
I'm never going to apologize, Dave, for being in first place. But again, that's the good news. After 10 weeks. The bad news is 8 weeks to go. And to your point, I have 15 other sharps chasing me right now. And I slid into first. I went 5-2 against the number versus the point spread. I'm up a half a game. So it's not like I have a tremendous lead. But again, always humble, always grateful. It's an honor to be in the World Championship of Sports Betting. And at this point, yeah, to your point, I'm in first. But let's see where I'm at in 2 months.
There you go. We don't want to count our chickens before they're hatched. And I mentioned to you off the air, my dad used to say, since we're all from Iowa and it's a big euchre, the card game, and he used to say, I've never paid anybody on 30. It takes 31 to win the game. And you're right. We still got a few weeks left. But like you said, we're never going to apologize for being in first. So congrats on that. And I presume you're still doing well in the Golden Nugget and some of the other contests you're in as well.
Yeah, in fact, the guy from the Westgate contest competing for 460,000, one winner take all out of 92 of us. I was in the top 5, and I ended up going 4-1, but this guy went 5-0. He's already world class in kicking butt. He went 5-0 as a first place guy. The odds of going 5-0 against the point spread, just so you and I understand, it's 32-1 against. Imagine flipping a coin 5 times and being right each and every time. The odds of you doing that, which is applicable to the point spread, is 32-1 against. But this guy already in first place went 5-0. So I went 4-1 and lost ground. Are you kidding me?
That's your other tagline. I love that. It said, see the cashier. Are you kidding me? Exactly right. Crazy good numbers. But here's what I'd like to get to with you. Some more crazy numbers. But I have a question from Gary, our viewer in Decorah. And I wanted to ask you the same question, so I'm glad Gary stepped in with it. So, Scott, you bet on a lot of different sports, NBA, WNBA, NHL, MLB, NBA, as I mentioned, college basketball, pro football, college football. Of all the sports that you wager on, which is the most difficult for you, or which takes your most careful consideration, and why?
Gary from Decorah. That's interesting because I am from Decorah, born and raised Wadena, Elgin, Claremont area until 1980, and then went to Northwind High School, graduated in 82. As far as what is the most difficult, it's a fair question. It's a common question. It might surprise you. The most challenging thing to beat, every sharp will tell you, every wise guy will tell you what I'm going to tell you. And I say this knowing that I'm doing extremely well again in the football handicapping contest in Las Vegas, but it's NFL football. These lines are so sharp, and we're talking about just a small amount of games over a 7-day window, week in, week out. NFL football, the whole world bets it. It's very, very, very popular, but more times than not, it ultimately comes down to the very last minute, the very last possession in regards to the point spread and or the total, and it's more of a crapshoot. It's somewhat random. The good news is I've been fortunate with my countless unfair advantages and experience and proven duplicatable process. I've done extremely well in these sports betting contests that generally format just college and pro football. So to answer Gary's question from Decorah, what do I find to be the most difficult? None of them and all of them, but specifically NFL football.
Yeah, and to your point, you look at a team like Jacksonville this last week, completely lay an egg at home against the Niners. And, you and I have talked about this on the air. Let's bring it on the air. A West Coast team traveling to the East Coast time zone, 3-hour difference in that early noon window or 1 o'clock kickoff, noon here in the Central time zone. But that's the intriguing thing to me is that you take a look at that kickoff, and the Niners are struggling going into that game. Jacksonville on a bit of a high. They got soundly trounced. Was it 36-3 or 35-7, something? I mean, they got rolled by the Niners. And George Kittle, former Hawkeye tight end, had a big, big day. And we'll mention under our breath that Brock Purdy is a former Cyclone, but this is a Hawkeye show. But it's interesting to me, Scott, to Gary's question and to your point, all of them and none of them. That's a prime example right there where the NFL sometimes, I don't want to use the word crapshoot, but it's got to be extraordinarily, to use your word, challenging.
Well, yes and no. Every wise guy and every sharp in Vegas was on San Francisco. The line opened 1.5, was bet up to the key number of 3, and even 3 minus 120, 3 minus a quarter. So every sharp player, every professional sports bettor that I know in my sphere of influence, in my inner circle, we were all on the Niners, and for good reason. As much respect as I have for the Jacksonville Jags, they're not in San Francisco's league. And the fact that the Niners had lost not once, not twice, but 3 times the lady, we really expected them to bounce back and win. I always respect the home team, but I thought 1.5 is what I laid, 1.5 and a bit of 2. But yeah, I really wasn't that. I was surprised that it was to win by 30 plus points was a bit of a surprise, but the right side definitely was San Fran. But it doesn't always go that way. You can be on the right side and lose by 20. That's why they call it gambling.
I want to highlight one other thing for our viewers that Scott has mentioned. You've mentioned prop bets are a chance for some viewers to take advantage of that, right?
Well, that's a very good point. One of the reasons I think you're one of the world's best hosts is because you retain information very well and you listen. You understand that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should listen twice as often as we speak. And it's just amazing to me that you have such a great memory to recall things I've said that I've long forgotten. So I want to give you kudos for that. But yeah, you ultimately want to pick your spots, spot your picks, and never pick your nose.
Or your friend's nose, as the old expression goes, right? Very good. Very well done, Scotty P. My friend, as always, congratulations for now, but I think you're going to keep it rolling. I'm not worried a bit. My money's always on you, folks. He is Northeast Iowa native Scott Pritchard. Scotty P. been in Vegas 30-plus years, crushing it, and I say that every week because I truly mean it. Take a look at the numbers. Pritchard'sPicks.com. Sign up, get your free picks, pay for picks, whatever you choose, it's all there for you. The man with the plan, Scott Pritchard. Scotty P, as always, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next week.
Keep up the good work, my man. I'll look forward to it, Dave.
I will if you will, and likewise as well. So for Scott Pritchard, Michael Merrick, Mitch Fick, my production partner Michael Merrick as well. Also to you, the viewers, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.